Yes, they carry out work that many wouldn't want to do and many couldn't. But at what price? Tonight we report on the pay scandal for care workers who drive from house to house looking after people. We'll hear how some of them are not paid for their travel time between calls, and that could push them under the minimum wage. We'll also hear calls to pay carers a higher level of minimum wage, which is currently £12.21 an hour. But how much should that be? I want to hear from you on this. You can see the numbers ticking up. But what is fair? First on this story tonight, Sharon Edwards has this report.
It's the first appointment of the day. A home care visit to Denise, a widow with diabetes.
Good morning, Denise. It's Lizette, sweetheart. You okay?
No, not too bad. You know, diabetes has been playing me up.
Oh, bless you, sweetheart. You started without me, having a cup of tea. We having another one?
Yes, please.
These daily visits help Denise stay independent, potentially saving the care and NHS systems a lot of money.
See you tomorrow, sweetheart. Will do, lovey. Take care.
But some say it's the carers who are picking up the bill, because they're not always being paid for the time between appointments. Many workers are being paid the minimum wage, but it's argued that if they're not being paid for their time spent between clients, i.e. travelling, then they're falling below the minimum wage, illegally. This is Lisette's employer, who does pay for her travel time, but he's calling for widespread industry change.
The care worker will be paid for their time in a visit, and they may do, in some instances, 20 to 30 visits per day. And even if there's only 5 minutes driving in between, that could lead to a situation where for 6 hours paid work, they may be doing 2 hours unpaid work. If the organisation is not then compensating them by raising the pay rate up, they fall below the legal minimum wage.
But Lisette's previous employers didn't pay for her travel time.
A lot of companies can look at it from the point of view, well, it's your downtime. But actually, it's not. I'm actually travelling to another job. It can feel that there's a little bit of exploitation there and an expectation to just get on with it, if that makes sense.
If a care worker feels that the system means that they're below minimum wage, my advice would be to contact HMRC immediately, and they will follow that up. And care providers, we meet regularly with HMRC, who explain what you have to do in terms of what you have to pay for.
Demand on the care system is being driven upwards, but can we meet the task if workers like Lisette feel they're being asked to shoulder too much of the cost? Sharon Edwards, BBC Look North, Lincoln.
Of course, we spoke to the government about this. They said that we wrote to 27,000 care workers last month, urging them to check their pay, and we'll be writing to thousands more in the coming months. A government spokesperson said travel time between appointments counts as work time for minimum wage purposes. While most responsible businesses get it right and pay the correct minimum wage, we will take action against those that don't to ensure that workers receive what they are legally entitled to. Well, we saw him briefly there in Sharon's report. I'm joined now by Dan Archer, who is the director of the National Association of Care and Support Workers. Dan, good evening to you. Good to see you. Are there some carers then not being paid for driving between calls?
Absolutely, and I think the degree to which the practice is widespread is problematic. So the data we have comes from a website, Fairer Carer Pay, and over a 3-year period, 2,000 carers were surveyed, and it showed that 71.8% of them were paid below the legal minimum wage.
I mean, the Quality Care Group said earlier this year that the care industry is in crisis. Do you agree with them?
I absolutely agree that we have a challenge in terms of workforce recruitment and retention. We've currently got, according to Skills for Care, 111,000 empty jobs. And I think the challenge is that in many instances, care workers are not being paid correctly for the very difficult job that they do.
Underpaid and undervalued?
I would say absolutely underpaid and undervalued. And I think in a situation where, Visiting Angels, the organisation which featured in the piece that you guys have run, they're paying £14, £15 an hour. They're paying for travel time on top of that. In that situation, it's easier to see how you can find care workers that may want to do that work. But the challenge is, if we're talking about potentially 574,000 workers across the UK who are paid illegally, for the country as a whole, it's a problem.
And you say that the job is actually more like nurses now as well, don't you?
I would say increasingly so, yeah. I mean, I think one of the challenges that goes along with an ageing population is that the care needs of that population are increasingly more complex. And so some of the work that's being done by carers across the UK now is very complicated indeed. And if the care worker was working for the NHS on an NHS ward as an HCA, they would conceivably be earning 20% more than they do working for a home care business sometimes.
As I said there at the start, I mean, these are jobs that many of us couldn't even do. But people are doing it, some on minimum wage. How are we in a situation where somebody who works in Lidl or Aldi is earning more money?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's the nature of the work that is done. So care workers are big heart people. They give an awful lot of themselves in doing that. And absolutely care workers are not in this for the money at all. But I think what's happened is over the years that to some degree that's been exploited and they are being taken advantage of. And I would say also that, you know, the Home Care Association says that in the last 4 years, 619,000 workers have left the workforce. That's also problematic.
OK, minimum wage, £12.21 an hour, Aldi, Lidl, £13 an hour. What would the figure an hour be, minimum?
I guess it would depend on whether the organisation was going to pay separately for the travel time, but I would suggest that a good number would be £15 to £16 an hour. Government is also looking at £15 an hour being a number for care workers. But I think the challenge with government is if they're not recognising the degree to which this practice is widespread, they're not actually going to be addressing the real problem.
Mr. Archer, very good to see you. Thank you very much, Dee, for coming in, and very keen to get your views on this one tonight. Are you a carer affected by this non-payment of travel hours? Should the carers get a higher minimum wage? If yes, how much do you think that figure should be? And very keen to hear from you if you are a carer and you're watching the programme tonight. If you are a carer, your views. Love to hear from you. If you want to get in touch, the email address is there, looknorth@bbc.co.uk. Follow me on Twitter, tweet me now, or text 8